Welcome everybody to God is Imaginary, episode 3. Uh you're not crazy. I did premiere this episode a couple minutes ago, but I did not notice that my microphone was muted. I'm using a different thing to stream. Instead of OBS, I'm using Streamlabs here. By the way, if you are watching this on YouTube right now, you can join the Discord server that will be scrolling by on the top. It's coming any second now. Wait for it. Type that code into your Discord. You'll be able to join me live to discuss anything you like if you're watching this on YouTube live. If you're watching this on television, you can still join the link right there, but you will not be joined into the current conversation I'm having right now. You will be able to still talk to me live, and it will be recorded on a show, but this is a rerun. It's 2 weeks behind, so I apologize. Just the way television works. It takes time, people. It takes time. Before I realized I was cut off, muted, I was just talking about the interesting phenomenon I've been witnessing kind of in like at the turn of the 2020s, where a lot of people my age or even younger are deciding to consciously turn away from conventional religion like Christianity, Judaism. Well, that's the two, right? That's all there is. In favor of spirituality, legitimately believing in witches, curses, horoscopes, etc. Now, what's interesting is that theists out there will listen to that and be like, "Well, that's just crazy. That doesn't even make any sense." And it's like, I agree, but I see how I don't. But the thing that confuses me is how these people that are abandoning conventional religion for this nonsense here see any difference at all. To me, they are functionally the exact same. I'm talking about faith today. Christians wear faith on their sleeve proudly. And to me, faith is just believing in something without evidence. And they wear that as a point of pride, to just believe in something credulously without any form of evidence for it at all. I see someone's joined the Discord server. When I'm ready to have live viewers, I will bring you in. Join the waiting room, though. Faith essentially is just believing in something without evidence, and I just can't wrap my head around that. What I believe is informed by what I can observe around me, right? It's testable, repeatable, the scientific method, essentially. The Bible just preaches just believing in something just because. And I think that's a terrible road to go down because, as Richard Dawkins said, even though I'm not a huge fan of him, to believe in something without evidence means you can just believe in anything. And that is a huge can of worms you really shouldn't open. Anyhow, I was talking also about, I find it interesting that the people that tend to go to spirituality come to it from conventional religion thinking that there's a difference when there's really not. These are the only reasons people believe in religion, and none of them are for a logical reason or principled reason. It's just faith. Faith is the basic building block of all of these reasons here. So, number one, they're just more comfortable being religious. It makes them happier. It puts them more of a peace of mind that, there's a God watching them and that they'll be protected and safe. And when they die, they'll go to heaven for believing in him. Now, is that a bad thing? I'd say yes, because people will say that, well, it's kind of like a normal part of human nature to believe in God, to believe in something beyond what you can observe. It just makes people happier sometimes. It also might make people happier if people believe they were dogs, because dogs seem content and happy all the time and joyous. It might make people happier if they believe they have $1 billion in the bank. It might make people happier if they believe they have a huge dick, even though they don't. I'm not speaking from experience, of course, but that doesn't offer any veracity as to whether or not it's true. You're just arguing, well, actually, it's a good thing because it allows people to naively believe a delusion to put themselves at ease. We can talk all day about, if it's a really a good thing to delude yourself. I don't think it is because nothing beats the truth, frankly. But at the very least, this is definitely not a logical reason. This is just believing in something just cuz. Um, a lot of people are just simply inexorable about their beliefs. So they stubbornly believe that this is the reality of that I choose to believe. And there's no argument, there's no question about it. This is what it is. You cannot discuss it with me. And what's interesting about religion specifically is that people will say, well, it's my belief, it's my faith, as a reply to justify what they're saying or doing, to justify, bigotry, homophobia, etc. Would say, well, that's just my personal beliefs. And a lot of people will take that as a legitimate reply to acknowledge, literally homophobia, bigotry, etc. It's like, well, that's just their personal beliefs. And as long as they're minding their own business, yada, 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 or even if they're not minding their own business, they get a special privilege to do things. There's an interesting example of this that I actually saw when I was, wasting my brain away on YouTube Shorts. It was of a prank video where this guy he's like a teenager, a little younger than me, like 18, 19. And he goes into well, obviously teenagers be younger than me. He goes into a fast food restaurant and he's a total bastard to the employees. He um is just rude and condescending and gets them all turned around and confused. But then later in the same clip, when he gets his food, he blesses it before he eats it. He includes that in the video, and you see a lot of people in the comments going, wow, I didn't know you were Christian. I thought this guy was kind of a dick, but I saw he was Christian. A lot of people will use their status of being Christian or just a God believer in general to artificially, justify their arguments, or even just say, I'm a firm believer. He was raised Catholic, yada, yada, yada. They'll include that as part of their moral character, which I think is interesting how high it's put on a pedestal in comparison to the alternative. If I were to go around saying, hey, I think we should teach atheism to kids. I think we should teach kids to actually be skeptical of what adults are telling them every now and then. That's you over encroaching. That's you being a little bastard. I did a show last year on Easter because I just thought it was funny and it happened to be serendipitous to the time I was feeling like I wanted to do it. And I got a tweet saying, effing disgusting to do this on a religious holiday just for no damn reason. Didn't even make sense. I don't know. I'm in the live right now, but I'm just gonna have it. I'm gonna deafen in the Discord, and when the other person's ready to talk, I will talk. But I want to get through the rest of the reasons why people are Christian and how none of them are even remotely logical or reasoned at all. Another one I was just hinting at it earlier. Religion really feeds and grows through brainwashing. No other way of putting it. Just grooming kids into believing in God from birth. Baptizing them at birth, cutting part of their penis off. All the rational, normal things, of course. They just brainwashed by family or cultural influence, where it's like, it's hard to break out of the conventions. Well, people are set in their ways. When they believe something, they it's hard to break them out of it, especially in formative years like that. And obviously that isn't logical at all. That's just changing the way that they develop thoughts. And actually I think that's deleterious to the upbringing of kids to just believe in something without evidence, just to groom that into them before they even have a chance to even respond or speculate upon it. In fact, that's, directly discouraged to even speculate on the existence of God. I declare that God is imaginary. That's the title of this series because I am positing that as a position. Well, actually, it's a negative position, but there are 15 different ways you can prove that God is imaginary. In the Bible, Jesus appears before Paul to prove that he rose from the dead. So that proves that the Bible, which Christians use as evidence of God, obviously, in the Bible, the thing that they're positing as evidence of God, because it says it in the Bible, that's like another inexorable trait, of course. That's the evidence of God, the Bible. I have my Bible here. I don't know where the hell it went. I must use it as a weed tray or something. Here it is. This is what they present as the Bible. But in the Bible, it directly says that Jesus appears before Paul to prove he rose from the dead, to prove he is the Son of God. That means it's okay for Jesus or God to appear before people, but he doesn't, even though it happens in the Bible. And there's another part of the Bible, anything that you, it's in Mark, but I don't remember the exact verse, unfortunately. Anything that you pray for, if you believe in God, it will happen. See the millions of times where that's failed for people. Morality doesn't require a religion. Morality is the thing we should teach, not the religion. I was also wrong with my tweet. It was perfect timing. If I had different religious viewpoint, I would have thought it was perfect timing. Okay. That's just someone in the chat stating that. That was the person I was talking about that wrote that tweet. It's not really relevant to the stream though. But that's just the thing where it's like, if you even encroach on Christian spaces at all, then you are somehow at a moral deficit just because it's the alternative to what we put on a high ground here in America, Christianity. Another reason why people believe in God is just that they fear hell, something to which the existence of has no observable evidence whatsoever. And I believe for something to exist, it has evidence that is observable in the real world. Everything that exists has evidence for its existence. If you press someone for, existence of hell or something, they'll play the shell game to try and avoid answering why they fear it when there hasn't been any scrap of evidence. Pascal's wager is a common reply to atheism, where it's like, if you believe in God and he's not real, so what? But if you don't believe in God and he is real, well, then you're going to hell. So which is the easier one? Now, they present this in this game theory table where it's like, obviously one seems more preferable than the other. But I could just as easily say, my God Jim Jab, he only allows you to go to heaven if you deny religion, if you fully believe in, what is observable in the real world. You better not believe in a God or else you will go to hell. I could say the exact opposite thing. Pascal's wager you could swap out the not believing God versus believing in God thing for any other hypothetical imaginary thing, and the logic of it remains the same, which is to say that there is no logic of it. It's just saying you better believe in God because what about the alternative? What if you're wrong? Well, so because first of all, I'm not wrong. I'm certain that God is imaginary. But number two, like I said earlier, you could say that about literally anything. So that doesn't make it any more true to just say, let me move my logo here. Whoopsie. To just say, well, you don't want to be wrong about it. And also the interesting thing about Pascal's wager is that it isn't actually a position that theists put forward to prove that God is real or not. Pascal's wager doesn't make the existence of God any more likely. It just posits that it's probably preferable for you to believe in God if you're a huge fucking pussy. Oh, well, I cursed. Sorry. I gotta edit that later. Another reason why people believe in God is just, this is based off creationism, essentially. They believe that the universe's existence is just too perfect to have been created organically. You know, like how a puddle can be filled with water and they'll be go, "Oh my god, it fits perfectly. How could that happen coincidentally?" The universe, you know, obviously is the most incredible thing out there. It's amazing that we exist as species. But here's my position about our existence as a species. We exist because we can exist. Now, what do I mean by that? Our planet, Earth, is suitable for creatures like us and millions of other types of species to exist on it. That doesn't mean that we were specially designed or anything. Evolution explains that we carry traits that help us survive so we can create more offspring, essentially. There doesn't have to be any god or any grand prime movement um outside force creating this perfect world we're in, which by the way is hugely flawed. So it's not perfect by any means. But they ask, how could we exist? Our existence essentially is so special that God must be real, which is a really egocentric viewpoint, by the way. And also, our existence, like I said, is not perfect at all. You ever heard of appendicitis? But also, we can just exist, and we exist in the forms that we do. I'm speaking as humans because this is the species that can survive in the environment that we find ourselves on. Jeez. Just, oh boy, I'm already getting the text. Great. But yeah, the universe's existence being too perfect to have happened coincidentally. The universe could have happened any number of different ways, and you could say the exact same thing. It's like, a kaleidoscope. You look through a kaleidoscope and you get all sorts of unique, interesting pictures through it, and they all look incredible and amazingly symmetrical. But they're all randomly generated too. They're all just the process of, well, not even randomly generated. They're just the process of different variables and then being generated through the mirrors that are in it to create a recursive pattern of it. That is to say that, the universe could have happened randomly. Actually, it did happen randomly, and it could have been anything, and this argument would still work. Therefore, it's not specifically relevant to the universe we find ourselves in. Therefore, it's not valid. Another reason why is, people like Donald J. Trump and Elon Musk, even, or Samuel Hyde, they just use it to exert power over others or to give their own movements an inflated sense of importance to just take control over people and find themselves able to seize power. That's the basic components of fascism. And they're able to leverage this credulous part of human tendencies that people tend to gravitate towards being religious to artificially justify themselves. Because, like I said earlier, religion has an artificial heightened importance in the Angloverse and even just the world, really. It's sacred to a lot of people. Criticizing it is not the same as, like, the act of criticizing religion to a lot of people is worse than preaching religion. I think, the opposite is true, but from an outside perspective, they should be equal. This should be an equal conversation, but it isn't. It's just arbitrary. People that are fascists that are trying to use religion to take control gravitate towards religion because it's the one part of people that believe in religion they will not question for the above reasons. And since they can already believe in religion without reason, that means that they're also predisposed to just believe in anything without reason. That's why you see so many Republican, Trump supporting Christians out there. Love thy neighbor, but also deport those damn illegals already. They also subscribe to actually going back on that a little bit. There is several parts in the Bible where it talks about, just invading other countries and enslaving, you know, after being freed, the Israelites were able to just ravage other nations and enslave their people because they were earned they were entitled to that. So actually, if you are Christian, then maybe you might be a fan of Mexicans supposedly invading the United States and raping all our women, even though that isn't happening. But whatever. They also, they just subscribe to their religion for camaraderie with their peers. In the South, there's not a lot to do. So you go to church to see people every Sunday. Now, I don't think there's anything malicious about that at all. I don't think there's any malicious reasoning there. In fact, even prior to it, the main reason why people believe in religion is just gullibility. Truly, that's like the main reason. That's why um, fascists use it to leverage power, to strong arm their way into power. But yeah, a lot of people subscribe to religion for camaraderie and, you know, so they can talk to people that see the world the same way as them. I can see like a through line of logic where it's like they're more comfortable around other people, but obviously that doesn't make it more true, that people are happier if they believe in religion. A lot of theists, as someone in the chat has already indicated, a lot of theists also indicate that religion is what establishes their moral framework. Um, Without a religious lens to see the world through, um, they can't be informed of any morals. God, the Bible, is what informs their morals, and without God or any other supreme being dictating what's right and wrong, there'd be no right and wrong. Now, what's interesting about the terms right and wrong is that it's highly contextual. In the United States, there's nothing wrong with a man marrying another man, but in Russia, there's something very wrong with that. It just depends on where you are, even on the world. So I think that pretty clearly establishes there is no objective right and wrong, and that's exactly the point. Your opinion on what is right and wrong varies from person to person, but sorry, varies from person to person. And that's because of the societies that we find ourselves in that have different laws, different morals, different levels of corruption, etc. What's right and wrong is established by the society you live in. So, in the United States, what we consider right and wrong is just informed by the society we live in. There isn't an individual God choosing what's right and wrong in different parts of the world. That doesn't make any damn sense. They argue that there isn't even any way to claim that something is good or bad without some grand arbiter interpreting it for them. And I don't know why it can't be up for debate what's right and wrong. Why we can't discuss what's right and wrong in our societies. But we can also, but then they also say, well, then how do atheists determine what's right and wrong? Well, obviously that varies from person to person, but I have a pretty easy answer to that, and it's just empathy with other people. Um, Very simply, like, we prosper as humans when we work with one another and treat others as we prefer to be treated. If someone infringes upon the peace of someone else, which is the basis of pretty much any law that is ever written, they are in the wrong. If someone is doing something to insinuate themselves upon another person to violate their peace, they are in the wrong. Whether that's committing credit card fraud, or murdering them, or burglarizing them, or ripping off their intellectual property. All of those things are infringing on the prosperity of that individual person that they should be entitled to because they live in this society and they contribute to the society through the taxes they pay and the services they provide for work. Like, that is the basis of practically every law that was ever written. And while, the theists that initially prescribed those laws in Greece, where democracy was established, were informed by the Bible, they've stuck around to secular times without religious inspiration for obvious reasons. There's a reason why we decided, hey, let's keep this separate from the law. Because if this was not separate from the law, we would not be the United States, where we have objective laws where we evenly and equally prosecute people. We would have the Middle East, where, you offended God, so you should be stoned to death. We would be Palestine, that, the people of Israel, in which Palestine sits in, do not like Palestinians very much. And they believe that the land of Israel was given to them by a grand arbiter, God, so they have the right to rip the land out from under them, and anyone that gets killed in the process, well, you know what? That's just a casualty of war that they started for being there. Oh, what about October 7th? What about 1948? And so all this to say is the reason why I've pivoted the show, actually, from being a debate show. I still plan on it being a debate show. Is number one, it's just starting out, so it's hard to find people to talk to. And number two, it's impossible to convince any theists out of religion if they continue to be theistic up to this point, because they're dead set on one or more of the above listed reasons. They're happier if they're religious. They just will not change. Their views on it will not waver at all. It's just a fact to them, even though that's not how facts work. They just believe in some logical fallacy, like the universe is too perfect to have been created by God, or God is what informs my moral beliefs, and without God, you can't have any, sky daddy to say, hey, that's actually mean to molest children, even though that happens in the Bible, but whatever. Now, and the interesting thing about all those reasons is that they provide more than enough room for theists to move goalposts around, so that way if you criticize one thing, they can move it and shift it to any form of rhetoric to just change the subject and talk about another thing, or eventually just make their arguments so abstracted that they can't even defend or argue it. Now, the absolution of religion itself would not cure the world by any means. Logic is not empirical, even but religion in the 21st century, as it always has, I'm just saying in the 21st century now more than ever, only serves as a hindrance to reason. And without reason, we do not have a society. It only serves to inhibit medicine, to pollute politics, pollute democracy, to infringe on freedom, and to leverage power over people. But what do I know, I guess, we might have a potential caller here. I don't know if they intend on joining. We'll wait on that. I just, that was on the mind, and I thought that was interesting. The title of the stream is, Heaven, Hell, and Faith. Because, going back to Pascal's wager a little bit, they talk about, well, what if God is real, and you're actually wrong, even though there's no evidence to support that God is real, or hell is real, etc. The idea of heaven is this just broad utopia. The idea of hell is just this broad, endless suffering. In heaven, hypothetically, because everything is perfect, you could not fail. You would have the ideal life. In hell, you could not succeed. You would have the worst life. My point is, if you were in either of these realms for all eternity, what fucking difference would it make after enough time? Do you have any idea how long eternity is, to where the context of what is suffering and what is peace just becomes completely meaningless? It would not take even that long for everything to just lose all meaning to you. What makes good things good, good things as in things that make you feel good in the world, like earning money or doing good deeds, and things that make you feel bad in the world, like um doing bad things that infringe upon the rights of others or doing something dishonest, is the context in the world where you can achieve both. You can achieve great success if you're funny enough or talented enough or smart enough. You can earn a position of status that is great, and you can have a great ideal life. You can earn that. You can also have a really terrible life if you just happen to be, unfortunate enough. But what makes these things meaningful is that they're both possible, and in relative terms, they're reasonably within your means of ascertaining. What makes success meaningful, what makes joy and utopia meaningful, is that you earned it. What makes misery meaningful is, in fact, the exact opposite. If you find yourself homeless, for example, it means that somewhere along the way there was some shortcoming, probably not even not I won't say probably, but possibly not even your own fault, and you failed and you ended up homeless. That's what makes it meaningful to you, is that you did not succeed. And the beautiful thing about life is that you can keep trying to succeed, to get to a higher status in your life. But in hell, once you're there, you can't ever escape that. In heaven, once you're there, you can't ever fail. There's no context to success. There's no context to utopia at all. So, at the end of the day, those sensations of misery or euphoria will just fade. We're going to take a quick commercial break to gather my thoughts a little bit more. And when we come back, we're going to have a series we're going to watch by a guy named Billy Bob, or whatever the hell his name is. Jim Bob. Arguments against atheism. So stay tuned. We'll be back in 60 seconds. Thank you. And welcome back, everyone. We are back. So we're gonna watch. I don't know if we're gonna watch the full series here, because it seems he's only gone up to number 4, and then decided, you know what, I'm just gonna stop numbering. This is a series made by Jim Bob, Arguments Against Atheism. It's like a kind of a series to teach debate tactics against atheists. So we're gonna take a look here. They're not very long, except for the last one, but I'm not even sure that that's meant to be there. It doesn't look like anything else on this. Maybe he just ran out of colors. He was like, yeah, there's red, blue, yellow, pink, white. That's all the colors, right? All right. Here he is. We got Justin Theroux deep faked with Sylvester Stallone's haircut. Or maybe the opposite way. I don't know.
In this first installment of Arguments Against Atheism, we explore a common position you may have heard from your atheist friends. We're like biological machines in all of our actions.
So, okay. Did you really have to make the atheist straw man look exactly like me? That's a little unfair. Also, so let's take a look here. He's got vaccines because he's a credulous dumbass that believes in the efficacy of vaccines. What a heinous idiot. I believe in God. God will take care of COVID. I recognize Richard Dawkins, obviously. I don't recognize who these other two people are. This looks like Gabriel Iglesias. He's also got pornography opened. That's good. Yeah, it seems Pixar here messed up the angle of the laptop. It's like pointed toward the camera, where everything else obviously has a direct, has some direction with the perspective. Yeah, third grade art projects are pretty difficult, so I won't judge him too hard on that.
And thoughts and everything are all just like determined by laws of physics and chemistry. I mean, this is basically common knowledge now. Well, in this
Okay, so he's taking issue. Well, let's rewind that. I interrupted him.
Atheism, we explore a common position you may have heard from your atheist friends. We're like biological machines and all of our actions and thoughts and everything are all just like determined by laws of physics and chemistry. I mean, this is basically common knowledge now.
Well, that's not necessarily an atheist perspective. I mean, you could still be theist and believe that. There's no reason why God couldn't have designed your brain to just work that way, because empirically that is how your brain works. So what I'm inferring here, I'm cutting him off, obviously, is that he doesn't like the idea that all we are just our brain stems, and our brains are just neurons firing, and we're just creatures we're just slaves to biology, basically. Just I don't see what the problem with that really is. That just describes the reality of that just describes our reality. That doesn't make it more or less meaningful. That's just what it is. I don't see the problem with that.
In this video, I'm going to give you a fatal argument against this position.
Fatal.
And I do mean fatal.
Fatal. I shot him in the face. Okay, materialism.
Welcome to Arguments Against Atheism, a series that aims to provide clear and simple arguments against common atheist positions.
Okay.
I'm Jim Bob.
So this isn't. So okay, this is a position commonly held by atheists, yes, but also it's commonly held by just theists. We are just creatures that just run autonomously, but we're really just slaves to our neurons firing. Really, we're just chemicals, and it's like, well, yeah, empirically that's what we are, but that doesn't change anything. Like, it's like the idea of, like, if we woke up tomorrow and CNN reported, oh, we're actually in a huge simulation. Some people might be disturbed about that, but really, what difference would it make if we were? The things that happen still matter to us. I still have the free will to do whatever I want, even though, realistically, it's an illusion based on what we can observe. People can observe the brain and see that parts of the brain will light up and indicate what someone will do before they even consciously decide to do it. That's something we can observe empirically. But why does that matter? Why is that a bad thing?
And I'm here to deliver the goods.
Let's
First,
see
I
it.
should clarify. Not everyone who is an atheist believes that matter exists and only matter exists.
Well, actually, what? Not everyone that is an atheist believes that only matter exists. Well, definitionally, matter is just what exists. It's just physical substance. Like it's a catch-all term to describe anything that exists as a physical substance. So by definition, if something exists, it is matter.
First, I should clarify. Not everyone who is an atheist believes that matter exists and only matter exists, nor does every atheist necessarily defend hard determinism.
Okay, what? Okay. So I'm confused on his inclusion of the term matter, because matter, like, by definition, by you choosing to use that word, matter is just what exists. And hard determinism is it's a philosophy where what we can observe in the world is what's true, basically. If we can run the scientific method on it to prove that it exists, then it's true. And he's right. You know, a lot of atheists don't necessarily believe that, you know, like the ones I mentioned earlier that gravitate towards spirituality or other equally credulous things. Me personally, obviously, because he chose to use the word matter. Like that, the definition of the word is matter is describing things that definitionally exist. So, yes, from that definition, for it to exist, we have to be able to observe it. Holy God. I'm just wondering why he takes issue with that necessarily, like what the problem even is with it. Why if God is real, why that contradicts anything? If God being real or fake is actually pretty much irrelevant in this conversation.
However, these are common positions taken by atheists.
Yeah.
Well, atheism is just like the position that holds like there's no belief in a God. Like, what are you even talking about?
Okay.
Well, yes, and many of you come to that position based on the assumption that physicality is all there is. So let's examine the assumption. According to the view that we are all merely biological machines, our actions, our thoughts, and our words are all determined by the laws of physics and chemistry.
What a tragedy that would be.
Let's say it in a much more direct way. Everything we think, everything we say, everything we do are all effects determined by physics and chemistry. Okay.
I'm wondering why this is a problem. I'll wait for him to get to it. But like it seems like he's just upset about that fact of the reality. It's like, you know, even if that, you know, that's the case, so what? That doesn't make it matter any less. It doesn't make our lives any less meaningful. It's like people that say, well, really, there's no meaning to the world, man. We're all gonna die and the sun's gonna explode. So what? What does anything even matter? It's like, yeah, you're right. But like, you're extrapolating from that because life has no grand meaning, that you can't enjoy it or that it isn't special. That's just not even true. That's a matter of opinion.
Well, let's take a look at some other effects of physics in the natural world.
And how are you going to argue someone's opinion on what they interpret the meaning of life to be?
A tornado. This is an effect of a cause. Let's call it a combination of natural conditions. This is a blade of grass growing. Another effect of a cause,
Beautiful.
Also a combination of natural conditions.
I could have swore that was real
These
grass
are
right
two
there.
occurrences entirely determined by the laws of physics. Now, would it make sense to say one of these occurrences are more true or more false than the other? No, they just are. They're effects. We could say that a description of one or the other could be more accurate or less accurate, but as far as the effect goes, it is what it is. It's just an effect.
Okay, but the question of if God is real is a true or false question. It is either true or false. Is God real? Or basically the assertion, God is real, true or false. It's different from saying that blade of grass is real because we, you know, by definition, we can observe it. We can see that it exists.
It's not true or false because it's not propositional. It's an effect of physics. Make sense? Now, here's where we have a problem.
I
If
could
all of our
I
thoughts
could
and
do the
words
same
and
exact
actions,
thing. I could have some dickhead whip up some crudely drawn MS Paint cartoon here and just have you jibber jabber on in your little room. You know what? I'll do that next episode. I think that'll work.
are
Because it's so funny to have that little straw man there that he's arguing with instead of a real human being. Like if I was doing this video, I would be doing what I'm doing now, where I'm replying to an actual person making these positions.
caused by the laws of physics, then they too are effects of physics. That means our
Okay.
descriptions of tornadoes or blades of grass are also just effects which are determined by the laws of physics and chemistry.
I really don't see where he's going with this, why this matters.
Well, didn't we just establish that effects of physics are neither true or false? They just are. How can an effect of physics be anything other than what it is, what it's determined to be by the law? If an evaluation or proposition is an effect of physics, how can it be wrong or right?
Because a proposition is something... What? By definition, a proposition is something that you are, extrapolate from the word, proposing. You can't... Well, I can't possibly be wrong because the words that are coming out of my mouth are actually just an effect of physics. And we just established that a completely incomparable example that is also an effect of physics can't be true or false because it just exists. I can't even follow the through line of logic here. It's just, it's totally fallacious. It's just totally being like, well, a blade of grass exists, so how could I possibly be wrong about God?
It just is, like a blade of grass or a tornado. Now, my critics will say, no, Jim Bob, propositions are different because they are descriptions of
Well,
effects.
you see how the Not Today Jesus poster is clipping over Luxo there?
To which I would respond, well, those descriptions are just effects determined by the laws of physics, right?
So?
Yeah, but we can evaluate our descriptions and see if they comport with reality. To which I would respond,
Yes.
are evaluations just effects determined by the laws of physics?
Okay, so he's using the everything is just effect by laws of just an effect of laws of physics to paint with a broad brush that then everything is meaningless and you can't even argue it then. That's what I'm interpreting from this. And obviously when you're making like an argument where you're proposing something, it can be replied to and challenged. Oh, well, that's just a proposition of physics. It's like, sure. And this isn't even like an applicable argument here.
Yeah, but we can test to see if our evaluations are accurate. To which I would respond, isn't testing just another effect determined by physics and chemistry?
So, like, just because it's another effect of physics and chemistry, he's extrapolating this to me. I guess he's extrapolating this to mean, things can have meaning because we are having these analyses and discussions which have meaning between me and you as human beings. But he's extrapolating that to mean, so that means the universe could also have a deeper meaning to it intrinsically. No, like that's completely irrelevant. Sorry, I'm having a difficult time even replying to this because it's so just divorced from anything I can even reply to because there's no logical through line here. There's no basis of logic. A blade of grass exists. It's not true or false, but a proposition is true or false because we are proposing it. You can't just say, oh, well, it can't possibly, it's not true or false. It just is because it's a proposition of physics.
So we have a determined effect of physics we call an evaluation, followed by another determined effect of physics we call a description, followed by another determined effect of physics called testing, which requires more effects, more effects, more effects, and on. Yeah, so what's the problem? Well, the problem is it's a vicious circle. And this is where I gift you the fatal argument against this position. Premise 1. Effects of physics are neither more true or false than any other effects of physics.
Yeah, but, well, he's using this language deceptively, outside of what would mean phatically when we make actual arguments or positions. Because by his logic here, I could just say, well, what you're saying is also an effect of physics, so it can't be true or false either. So why even talk at all? Why don't we actually just climb into coffins and die already?
Premise 2. Thoughts, evaluations, and propositions are effects of physics. Conclusion.
This is complete gibberish. This is completely meaningless. Why did you even upload this? Like, the amount of time you put together to make these transition cards, it's gibberish. It's just like a mishmash of just words that you heard else. You're just copying off some Christian blog somewhere.
Propositions are not more true or false than other evaluations and propositions. They just are.
Using
You see the consequence of this
improperly here, deceptively to completely negate the meanings of those words.
position is fatal to knowledge itself. If any knowledge claim or belief is just an effect of physics, and what we call knowledge is dependent on truth or falsity of a claim, then knowledge is impossible, because evaluations and claims are just effects of physics, and effects are neither true or false.
And so that proves that human beings are not, in fact, just robots with brains in them that are just slaves to whatever whims their brains tell them. That's not even true. This is like, we can examine this physically through just like biological tests. We can like analyze this empirically, and so what if it is? Like, that doesn't mean necessarily in itself that God isn't real, because our brains control everything. We are just effects of physics.
They just are. The position gets worse. If all of our thoughts, actions, and beliefs are effects determined by the laws of physics, then a Christian belief and an atheist belief and any other worldview is just an effect of physics. Saying a Christian has a false belief is equivalent to saying they have a false effect of physics.
No. All right. That's a complete fallacy there. You did not establish this logical through line at all, so I'm not just gonna... You can't just say, oh, I'm just ignoring everything that came before it. There's no A to B here. You take several, like, leaps to already get to the conclusion that you're trying to get to.
How can we believe anything other than which is strictly determined by the laws of physics? How can an effect of physics be false? Well, the atheist might say, well, some effects of physics can be true and some can be false. Okay, so if one effect of physics can be true or false, here's my challenge to the atheist who holds this position. What is the categorical difference between a tornado and thinking? Well, they might say, duh, a tornado isn't doing any evaluating. Well, let's try again. What is the difference between a tornado and evaluating? Well, like, the difference is like complexity and stuff.
All right, you can see the problem with this here. He's trying to like compare to take down one thing with a completely incomparable example. It's so like intellectually dishonest.
In this episode,
he took a stop at Tommy Bahama before filming this, I guess.
So we take a look at the very popular atheist argument called the argument from evil, which is often claimed to be a defeater to God's very existence.
No, it isn't. Like the idea that evil exists doesn't disprove God in itself either. Neither of the episodes we've seen so far are actually atheist views, as in they're directly refuting the existence of God. They're just things that atheists also say as an aside that are just natural conclusions you make once you understand there is no God.
Welcome to Arguments Against Atheism. I'm Jim Bob. I'm here to give you the goods. So what is the argument from evil? I don't want to straw man it, so let's get it in precise form.
We are glitching out here. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Did I fix it? All right.
Argument from evil goes as follows. Premise 1, God is omniscient, omnibenevolent, and omnipotent. Premise 2, an all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful God wouldn't permit suffering in the world.
You already have a problem here. That's not necessarily the case. There are many, times in the Bible where, God permits suffering here. The idea is this. So this is like the philosophical thing. If God doesn't stop evil, then why even call him God at all? But I mean, this doesn't necessarily disprove God. The question more so revolves around like, if God creates people, he knows everything that they are about to do from the moment they're born to the moment they die. If some people end up in hell, that means they had no choice but to just end up in hell. So why does he create people just to send them to hell all the time? That's more the question here than an all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful God wouldn't permit suffering. Well, that's just a position that you can't like. That's just your opinion on it. That's not something that's actually substantiated by Christianity at all.
World. Premise 3. There is suffering in the world. Conclusion. God knows suffering will occur, so he either can't stop suffering, so he's not omnipotent, or he refuses to, so he's not omnibenevolent.
I'll go along with what he's saying.
Alrighty. Did you see any obvious problems? I did. Premise 2 states an all-knowing, all-loving, and all-good God wouldn't permit suffering in the world.
So we both noticed the flaw in the argument that he himself presented and represented poorly.
Well, why not? What's the contradiction? It seems this very low-level argument from...
So, okay, wow, I've not seen this video before. So it seems he's inserted this logical fallacy, this logical shortcoming here in part number 2 to then to win the argument against himself, against the argument he's making.
Personal incredulity has no basis. From a Christian view, long-suffering is actually a virtue. It is through
Really?
suffering and sacrifice that we participate in the good. Oops. The overcoming of suffering is thematic in the Christian view and praxis. This premise also makes an assumption that suffering is evil. My question to the atheist is, in this episode, we take a look...
Sorry, we're screwed up here. I think so. Also, this started out saying, arguments, problem of evil, but then he changes it to suffering. So he's already moving the goalposts here a little bit. Evil and suffering are two different things. Suffering isn't necessarily brought about by evil. Sometimes you can just be completely ambivalent things, and evil is like a direct moral assertion.
What makes suffering evil? That depends on what you mean by evil.
Is that Jordan Peterson? What the hell? Yeah, big atheist Jordan Peterson, of course.
Evil. Is having an infected tooth evil? Is a hurricane evil? What about a lion eating a baby zebra?
Yeah, that's what... Yeah, see, all right, so this is already the Mott and Bailey that he's presented here. He's presented... if God is meant to stop evil, and he doesn't, then why call him God? He either doesn't exist or is completely incapable of stopping evil, so why even praise him at all? But he's already changing it from evil to suffering here. He's showing a lion attacking a zebra to eat. That's not evil. It causes suffering for the zebra, but that's just the law of the land in the jungle. That's just what it is. There's no moral framework to that at all. Evil regards to people that walk in the schools and shoot children, shoot literal children. That's an evil thing to do because it's something you're doing deliberately to cause suffering. It already exists within the context of deliberate harm done by people that know they're doing it.
Is that evil? These are all examples of things at most we find unpleasant. If I went to a restaurant and found the chicken special to be unpleasant, would it make sense to leave a review that stated, "Don't get the chicken. It was immoral"? No, that's silly. Preferences are preferences.
So, okay, he's already moved the goalposts 50 fucking miles. Sorry, I swore again. Damn it. But yeah, there's no actual honesty with this guy. He will not stick to the arguments that he's positing. He'll just say, "Oh, I don't mean to straw man here," and then just straw mans. "I don't mean to straw man here, so I'm going to put Jordan Peterson in a decrepit room. This is you if you argue against me. This is you. You see that? That's you."
Preferences are preferences, not ethical stances.
That's the exact thing, by the way. I was speaking earlier about how a lot of people say the Bible is what establishes the moral framework in people. What people's morals are varies wildly from person to person. So there is no grand moral framework at all. It's just a matter of opinion. And Christians seem to have issue with that. That what's wrong is just a matter of opinion at the end of the day, and what's right is just a matter of opinion at the end of the day. They need some grand meaning to it at all. But here we got the exact opposite, where he's saying like, whoa, hey, kid dying of cancer, what's so wrong with that?
Now, a very similar position on morality was introduced and made popular by atheist Sam Harris in his book, The Moral Landscape.
Okay.
Sam's position was this: morality is based on the maximization of sentient well-being. And I think we could all agree that suffering is bad. Well, no, Sam, we don't all agree. For one, you have to define suffering, as does the atheist.
Well, he does define suffering pretty extensively in the moral framework. He's just leaving that out because it's easier to argue if he goes, we didn't define it specifically. So not all suffering is bad. Well, yeah, because like the idea of something being bad or evil has a specific context of deliberate infliction.
Who is using the argument from evil. Perhaps the atheist will say, I think that it's fairly obvious that pain is the defining feature of.
All right, no, he's not even gonna try. I've already defeated the argument here. He's not even trying. All right, we've ran for an hour. I think this show went well. I appreciate everyone tuning in. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks with another episode. See ya.